Hi everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a book haul to kind of get you up to speed on all of the books I've recently picked up since my last book haul in November. So this is the accumulation of books that I've got over the last 5 or 6 months. Most of these books are secondhands, but my manga and other translated works were stuff that I had on pre-order. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I realize now that a lot of these books are boys love, which wasn't really intentional, but since it's the sort of like largest single category, we're going to start there. The first one on that list is the Scum Villain self-saving system. This is one of the 3 like most popular danmei or Chinese boys love series that are all from the same author. A lot of people have gotten into this genre because of her works. Since there's been anime and manga and live action adaptations of a couple of her stories, but this is the first time that her original novels have been translated and brought to the West. This is the first part that came out last year, and probably by the time this video is up, the second book in the series will be out. I wanted to start inching my way into this series, and when I asked my friends for recommendations, this is the one that sounded most interesting to me, and the main ship in it seemed like it was more my speed. It's also her first and I think her shortest, so it's a good kind of introduction book. From what I understand, this is more of an isekai than the other stories are, and I think it plays with and makes fun of a lot of the tropes that are common in this type of like Chinese historical fantasy. And from the overall plot description, it was the one that my friends had said that they thought I would like the most. This next book I actually got in the same order as the last one, and that is New York, New York. This is a bind-up of the first 2 volumes of this manga. This manga is such an underrated boys love classic. It's from the 80s, so bear in mind there is like some mindset things that nowadays it can take a while to get used to. But overall, I feel this is such a good story. It's a very different setting also because it takes place in New York as opposed to being set in Japan. It's been a really long time since I've read this. I think this wasn't available in English for quite a while, so I'm happy that they've gone ahead and started to translate it again. And I think the second volume of this comes out in August, so I'll definitely be pre-ordering that. And the last BL manga that I got was Border, volumes 1 and 2. I think I own volumes 3 through 5, but I never bought physical versions of the earlier copies, and I don't know why. I want to reread this whole series, but my other volumes are in storage right now, so rip. This is written by Kodaka Kazuma, who is one of my favorite BL manga like artists and writers. I really love her art style. I like her older art from the 90s, but I much more prefer her modern art style. I don't think this is being translated actively anymore, so I had to get these secondhand. There may be still like scanlation groups online that are doing the volumes as they're coming out, but I don't think it's currently in serialization by any manga company. Mostly because she writes so slowly. Like, the series has been going on for 10 years, and I think there's maybe like 8 volumes in total. At this point, I might just go and buy some of the later volumes in Japanese just so that I can have them. Of course, I have a mix of genres for the rest of the books that I got. Some of these I got from a small independent bookstore near me, and the other ones I got from my local thrift store. Starting off, we have one book that I'm really excited to read, and that is Nothing to See Here. When I saw this in the shelves of my thrift store, I got really excited. This book I found out about from the iconic Jordan Reads. She put it in a video that was titled like Favorite Books I Never Talk About on my channel, or some sort of title like that. And this book sounds like such my kind of book because it's about parenting and the struggles of being a parent with a little bit of magical realism thrown in. From what I know about the basic premise, it's about a woman who reconnects with a friend from college, and she becomes a nanny of the friend's 2 children who have the power that when they get upset, they will spontaneously combust and burst into flames. I think it's supposed to be like a fantastical metaphor for dealing with children that have anger issues and just like the general trials and tribulations of being a parent. And I really like eat that shit up. I love a realistic setting with this really like crazy fantastical element thrown in. So yes, I'm very excited to get to this in the near future. The next book I found at my usual thrift store, and that is The Lightkeepers. This book is a thriller that's set on like a remote island. I think it is set near a lighthouse or involves a lighthouse in some way. With a title like The Lightkeepers, it makes me think that there's going to be a lighthouse involved. And I have a weird fascination with lighthouses, and just like the setting of this book sounds really interesting. One thing that I will say is that from the back description, it sounds like there is a scenario of sexual assault that happens in the book that is like one of the main driving forces, which I don't really like reading about, but I still think that for the rest of this book, it does sound interesting enough that I can get through it. And I also think part of that plot point is that the assaulter is murdered and they're trying to figure out who was the cause of that, which normally I would be like, I don't know, what's the big deal? I mean, he clearly deserved it. But I think it's more of a situation of like, there's a killer amongst them, they're in an isolated area, and just because he killed this one person doesn't mean he's going to stop at just them. This book is a little bit older, probably maybe like 2014. I didn't look up the exact date, but it's not necessarily one that's talked about a lot on BookTube. But it seemed interesting, and I was drawn in by like the really beautiful like overall book design and cover design. Next book I have is another thriller, and that is Rock, Paper, Scissors. This is a book of the month book, I think, that came out sometime last year or the year prior. I don't know a ton about this. I'm pretty sure it's a domestic thriller about a husband and a wife that get snowed in this very like desolate area. And as they're stuck with one another, they're just kind of dealing with their emotional trauma and other like secrets in their past coming out. Actually got this for sale at my library. They have like a section of like $2 books in the front when I first walk in, and I was just like looking through them and I ended up seeing this and I was interested. So I had heard some other booktubers talk about it, so I figured I'd pick it up and give it a go. And it was only $2, so after I read it and, I know what all the twists and turns of the thriller are, I can donate it back and give it to someone else to enjoy. Okay, I have 2 more books to talk about. These ones I both got from an independent bookstore in my area. The first one I have here is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I've read a couple other Haruki Murakami books, and I want to go about and collect as many of his translated works as possible. I really like his writing style. It's very like surreal and all over the place. This book I think is a little bit more streamlined though. I think it's mostly just a coming of age novel about a young man who meets this kind of like manic pixie dream girl type woman. Because I was browsing and I saw this and it already was on like kind of my backlist of books that I was interested in getting, I decided to pick it up. I'm not a huge fan of all of the newer cover designs for all of the Murakami books, but I figured that I do like this version more than the like original cover, which I'll put up here. And since they had it in stock, I decided to pick it up. And the last book we're going to be talking about is one that I'm in the middle of reading right now, and I'm absolutely loving it, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. If you've been living under a rock, this book came out like 10 years ago and had like a massive resurgence in popularity because of book talk in the last 2 years. And all of the hype is definitely warranted. The writing style is really beautiful. The story is just like really heart-wrenching and like emotional. A brief summary is that this is kind of like a queer retelling of the Iliad that talks about the relationship of Patroclus and Achilles. I'm a little past halfway, so I haven't gotten to any of the incredible like emotional crushing scenes yet, but I'm really enjoying everything about it. I like the story. I love Patroclus as a narrator. And yeah, I liked it enough that I literally went to the bookstore to go get a physical copy because I had been listening to it on audiobook. And I'm not really like a quotes type of reader. Like that's not one of the things that usually stands out to me in writing, like to go back and underline and like think that these quotes stand out really well outside of the context of the book. But this book does have so many good quotes, like just in the way that the writing is like structured. It's so beautiful. So I wanted to get a physical copy so that I can eventually annotate it. So that is it for my book haul. I have all the books here that I recently picked up. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking it or subscribing if you aren't already. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!